Hey, thanks for joining me. Quite a while ago, one of my good buddies who I've met through my channel, Mark Domowitz is his name, he sent me a big box of these old Conan, Savage Sword of Conan Marvel magazines. And I've looked at a couple of them, but I have to be honest, I keep forgetting I have them. I've got them in the box he sent me. I kind of put them in order, and I tucked them away under my desk over here, along with a whole bunch of other shit. This little room that I'm in is just super crowded, and it kind of sucks. And then I keep forgetting that they're there, and every time that kind of crosses my, I'm like, oh god damn, it crosses my mind. Damn it, I got those damn Conan comics. I should flip through them to, mix up the videos between, bashing on Rob Liefeld's Youngblood or some X-Men or Cyberforce and Wildcats and shit. It's nice to mix it up. But damn it, we're going to do it. So I kind of grabbed just the next three out of the box and just kind of go in order. Now, again, I haven't read any of these. I kind of do want to read them. I've kind of given them a little bit of a flip through. I don't have that much time in the universe to go through and read all these things. But I'm mostly interested in, if you watch my channel for any length of time, you'll probably hear me say pretty quickly that I'm just such a fan of black and white art. Especially specifically comic book art. There's no disrespect meant to color. Great color is an amazing thing, and I love it. But sometimes I like to see this art just stripped away of all that color and just see the black and white work on the board, the ink on paper, and just to see kind of what this art looks like, because I do my own comics, and I'm staring at white paper with pencil and ink on the board all the time, and I like to see the original kind of raw work from all these great artists that do all this type of stuff. So that's one of the biggest things about these that I like the most. And just to kind of flip through these, just to kind of look at the art. Again, not to talk about the stories. I would read them at some point. I'll try to, but I don't have that much time to sit around and just kind of casually, leisurely read a bunch of Conan magazine stories that I'm not super interested in, as a story. But boy, good Lord, am I in it for the art. Most of these, it seems so far, pencils by the ever masterful John Buscema. I hope I'm saying his name right. I never know for sure. Buscema. I've heard people say Buscema. I've heard Buscema. I don't know. So if you know for sure, and I'm saying it right or wrong, you can correct me, but just kind of go easy on me for a minute. But his work, as I flip through these things, I'm just like, if there was going to be like a Mount Rushmore of the best comic book artists of all time, and I guess you could kind of put that through the lens of superhero comics, because there's such a wide array of, I'm just going who's the best artist in the history of ever? He has to be a contender, and especially if we're going to narrow it down to specifically American comics and superhero action adventure type stuff, not include manga and stuff like that. I don't know. He's just so unbelievably good with his forms. Just look at these figures. It's Plot and Pencils by John Buscema, Finishes and Tones by Ernie Chan. That's not a name I'm familiar with. I feel like it works really well. It's really interesting to see John Buscema's work inked by different artists. He'll ink himself, and then other people come along and ink over him, and everything just ends up, it looks like you can tell it's the same artist, but a different inker gives it a different vibe. And it's really interesting to see different takes, and everyone's got different opinions, but there's certainly versions of it that I think look better than others. I do also like the tones, and looking at it, I know that those sheets of Zipatone exist where people, you put it on there and you cut it out. But the tones on this, it looks like an ink wash over the original art. And it could be just watercolor. I mean, I don't know if there's much difference really when it comes to ink wash or just black watercolor paint, just heavily diluted. You can get a gray tone. Kind of the same thing. I've messed around with both, and it seems to basically go down the exact same way. But the gray tones, this is an example of kind of how I would like my comics to look. Not necessarily exactly like this, but I wouldn't mind it at all. Like if it was an ink wash, I might give that a try and see how it goes. But yeah, there's just this nice little kind of subtle ink wash. Like in some places, that first page is pretty heavy on those figures. But back here, like, I like how they leave the face all white, but then there's a little bit of ink wash in the background. Just to give it a little, just a tone. You know, there's black ink, there's white paper, then there's that gray mid-tone. And it's just kind of in various places. Very subtly used on like the girl here. Just lightly brushed on to her back. Looks like a little in her little dress there. Maybe a little on the lower part of Conan there. It's a really interesting technique. But just look at this great black and white stuff. It looks so good. You know, it also kind of flies in the face of the stuff that I grew up with where every artist was drawing big anchor images on the page. There's like almost none of that ever. You get like simple kind of paneled storytelling, and then occasionally you get a splash page for emphasis. And it could kind of come across as boring depending on who you are and what you're looking for. It is old school in its presentation. But I don't know how anybody could look at this and just not marvel at the absolute crazy skill of the figures that he can do. The muscles, the clothing, the composition shots of everything. It's just so good. He's one of those guys where you look at this and I'm like I need to go and learn to draw better. He's so fantastic. And again, the gray tones to kind of give emphasis. I like this shot of the castle kind of tunnel here and some gray tone up front here, but then the figures kind of in the center of it are just black and white. It kind of helps focus on them there. Great ink textures. It would be interesting to see what the pencils look like. I am very much aware that John Buscema can and has handed over pencils that were like breakdowns of the most basic type, like incredibly simplistic pencil breakdowns, leaving it up to the inker to really add the finish on top. Now, I don't know if that's the case here. It could be. I don't know. But whatever it is, it still looks distinctly John Buscema. It looks like his work. I would look at this and I'd be like, I know who penciled that. I wouldn't be able to tell you who inked it, but I would say that whoever the hell it is really good, giving it all these textures and this just that final kind of look that where the penciler and inker mesh together and make some fantastic work. Just everywhere you look, it's just great backgrounds. Probably pretty quick to draw for John Buscema in some of these pages where it's just a bunch of kind of rocky, organic backgrounds and then just big, awesome figures that I bet he can bang out in his sleep really quickly because he's just such a super badass. I love the background texture on this shot here with all these rocks and trees. Really fantastic. Really eerie kind of ground that they're going into here with these like kind of crater things emanating smoke. Creepy. Giant web that they're climbing up. Hell no. You guys ever been in a Conan movie? You know you're going to get attacked by a giant fucking spider. Good God. But, you know, Conan stabs it to death and that's fine. Love this kind of background sky thing. I've seen Mark Silvestri do things similar to that. Or it's not a background sky. It's like a rocky, like they're coming out of a cave. But it's similar to like, I've seen like Silvestri do like clouds and skies in the background, kind of sort of resemble that. But and then of course the jungle, he does it so well, so dang good, very lush and dense and organic. You just believe it. And this one, I flipped through it. I'm pretty sure the entire, like sometimes these books have like multiple stories. I think some of them I flipped through had like 3 stories. This one is like a big story. Like almost the entire thing is this one kind of main story we're looking at here. Great ruins, you know, the backgrounds going on here. Of course, he draws some really great looking girls. Again, you look at that and I'm like, it's kind of got this, I don't know what it is, where it looks like this is old school kind of female figure drawing. And like, well, what is the hell does that mean? Like, female figures are kind of the same, but I don't know. There's something about just, I don't know, the way that he draws them, these little, whatever these little flower things around their waist are, kind of a low cut thing on the hips. That seems to be a thing from like the late 70s, early 80s, low cut on the hips. They're very round and kind of soft and feminine, not like super tight, hard bodied and super tiny waists. They kind of got natural, soft, feminine curves and some meat on their bones, but they're still shockingly sexy as hell. What in the fuck kind of lizard creature monster is that? Looks great. Conan jumping in there to save the hot girls, killing the monster. He's going to have a good time. Both these girls are going to top him off. Hell yeah. Give him the old Eiffel Tower, girls. Just fantastic. Slayed the dragon. And again, just drawing multiple figures all over the panels. That gray tone getting in there, that ink wash look. Love this guy's, caricature on his face. Kind of the big nose and the exaggerated mouth and the wild hair and the beard. Looking like kind of like a cave troll kind of thing. Great hands. Like, look at that hand right there on that guy. Oh, God, I'm just bringing it up and looking at it through the lens of the camera right there. It's such beautiful artwork. I'd love to see any of these in person. I bet they look amazing. Again, this page stood out to me as one of my favorite. I love these shots of the guys' faces here, the gray tones all over it. Dancing girl, the flowing capes, the girl up front here with the little harp. It's something about it just stands out so good. Another great background with this castle surrounded by trees and jungle and giant cliff face. Like, this would be like a perfect, like a inexpensive Conan movie. You can just see the setting here. This is almost Schwarzenegger himself wandering around here, right? And then just to fill up each one of these panels with multiple figures to make it feel like a busy, full environment full of people of different types. It's just fantastic everywhere. I'm just going to end up repeating myself, saying the same thing over and over. But yeah, this is a very long story. Goes for quite the stretch, but it all looks freaking amazing. There you go. You can be a great artist, but you know how to draw big cats? Like leopards or whatever? I mean, oh, geez. And not just in a single shot, but like have them like chasing you around. You have to avoid them and fight them. Oh, God, it would be such a pain in the ass to do if you don't know how to do it. But page upon page of Conan fighting these big cats, they're crawling up trees and stuff. Fantastic art everywhere. Gray tones looking great again. Love that screamy face down there. But yep, end of story. Love this kind of last panel of Conan just standing way up on the cliffs, way up high, looking down. Just unbelievable art. It makes me want to sit down with just some ink on paper and just start rendering the shit out of some stuff. Another story. Now, this is interesting. Art is by John Buscema and Danny Bulanadi. Am I saying that right? Bulanadi? Now, it says art, and it lists one guy and another guy. So I'm assuming that means penciler and inker. If I'm just assuming that's the correct, that's correct what's going on here. Now, again, this is the same penciler, but it looks completely different. If you were to show this to me, I would have to struggle for a bit to maybe guess that John Buscema had any hand in it. The way that the art looks so different from this versus this stuff. I'm sorry, but this stuff here is 1,000 times better. It's all well composed and all the detail and everything. There is some gray tone going on in there, some probably ink wash, but it almost doesn't even look like the same artist. So again, were these handed over as very basic breakdowns, and then this other artist had to finish it, and it's more him than John? I don't know, but it doesn't look like the same artist. Like, it just is not even close. But same pencilers. So that's one issue there. Oh yeah, and they were getting ready to the that first Conan movie was coming out, and so they threw out some couple of shots in here from that movie. And I thought Schwarzenegger was a great Conan. I thought it worked really well. Oh yeah, there's another small story back here. What shocked me about this, because this damn book is made, I want to say 84. Did I remember? Am I remembering that correctly? I usually always have it right here. 82. Good God. 1982 says it right there. 82. I was 5 years old when this was made. And it says writer Bruce Jones, and it says art Joe Chiodo. I'm like, wait, what? Joe Chiodo? There can't be two guys in the comic industry with that name. I know him as the colorist, from my recollection, primarily from like Wildstorm comics. And he is same guy. I mean, I know he could draw. I've seen paintings and stuff that he would do, but I just basically know him mostly as a colorist. But it's got to be the same dude, right? I mean, is there two guys named Joe Chiodo? I've never seen that name before or since on anybody except him. So here's a story, and it's not as good as the first one, but it's certainly very competently done. I'm like, this guy can draw, and he's been drawing that far back. How old is this guy? I don't know. It's well done. It's really good, but it's just no one's gonna match John Buscema on it. But I was just, like I said, I was just shocked. Joe Chiodo, the colorist, has to be the guy. But if you know better, please correct me. I would be very curious to know. So that's one issue there. And then there's another one here. Let's get that was the last one was that was issue 78. I should have shouted out. I'm going to get that book back. Cover by Joe Jusko. That's pretty dang good, obviously. He gets to be better, like everyone does, right? I mean, of course. It's pretty good for a Joe Chiodo. Jesus Christ. Joe Jusko. He was always good, but he gets a lot better, too. But this one, cover, it says Norim? Don't know who that is. God, another thing I meant to point out, because I'm all about the art and I end up skipping by things. This inside front cover, Pablo Marlo, I think it says. That is a pretty dang good drawing, but the thing that really caught my attention, like the Conan figure, I can see how it's either, whether it's brush or some kind of nib, the cross-hatching texture that he uses to render that thing. But this lizard monster thing, I'm going to bring it up close and hopefully that the camera focuses in on it. It looks like it is. Look at this crazy texture on this lizard body. And I'm sitting there going, how the fuck do you get that? And the only thing I could come up with, and it's similar-ish, it looks like in the background. Look at that texture. I mean, that could be kind of an ink splatter. But if I had to guess, I mean, maybe ink splatter there. But this stuff, it looks like maybe like taking a sponge of some type and lightly dabbing it in ink. And then you're dabbing that texture on there. Anybody who's watching, Mr. Chuck Gibson, are you watching? You're an inker. Would you say that is a like a sponge or something like that to dab on there to get that texture? There's no way that that's drawn on there. I mean, it could be, but it would be so much easier to just get some kind of like soft sponge thing and dip it in ink and then just kind of dab those textures on and kind of control your values and shades and maybe come back and go back over it with some white or something like that. That texture made me stop in my tracks and go, what the hell? It looks fantastic. So anyway, there's that. But yeah, I was flipping this open and saw this inside cover of this one. Another incredible. It's the same artist, Pablo. I think it says Marlo or Marco. Dated 81, but a great figure going on there. Looks fantastic. This was interesting. Plus the new origin of Red Sonja. One, I didn't know she needed or had a new origin. I'm assuming this is from 82 as well. Yeah, July of 82. This first story, John Buscema finishes and tones by Ernie Chan. That was right? I just can't remember my memory. Yeah, Ernie Chan, same guy as last book. So again, we get another Conan story, and it's all fine. Like, the art has the same beautiful quality as the previous one. So I'm not going to sit here and go through this too much. Everything I said about those previous ones is here. Same thing with these girls. They look old school in their presentation, like that low slung kind of skirt on their hips where their little butt crack would be sticking out the top. It just looks like that's the way girls were kind of illustrated back in the day, long time ago. Still incredible, like this heavily detailed, filled up panel with all those figures everywhere is incredible. But I'm interested in getting into the Red Sonja story, which I read most of it. Because I'm like, what is going to go on in that story that's going to be interesting? Like, what is this origin, this new origin of Red Sonja? But we're going to get to it. It's just kind of checking out all this great art. Oh, it's so fantastic. Love that face. Look at that thing. That looks so good there. This shot of the guy in the cloak with the fire, the textures on the stone, like castle walls behind him. Look at the twist up of that Conan figure with the arms twisted as he's swinging his sword around, the weight of the figure on his legs. And all these figures, he's so goddamn good. Shocking to me. And again, I love the gray tones in this thing. That ink wash all over it. Another big cat. It kind of feels like the same thing. Creepy bad guys in castles, Conan and hot girls, giant cats. You know. So here we go. Red Sonja, she-devil with a sword. So story, Roy Thomas. Dialogue by, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I've seen his name in the industry for a long time. Doug, Moench. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I don't even want to butcher it. Dialogue by him. Dick Giordano with Terry Austin on art. Inspired by Howard Chaykin. Sonja created by Robert E. Howard. So I don't know what the original origin of Red Sonja is, because this one says the new origin. So, it starts out, there's Red Sonja. She's riding a horse. She's a badass. She's wearing her chainmail bikini thing. She kicks ass. She's chasing down some bad guys here. Being the baddest that she is. At a certain point here, we go back in time. She, as she's chased these guys down, she's excited because she finally caught up with this guy that she's been chasing for 5 years. I'm just kind of curious. Let me go back a page here. Yeah, she just starts kicking the shit out of all these guys. Because she's been chasing a guy. And then strung up here. These guys that she's killing, she has some people, they have some people strung up here. So she's like, honest thievery is one thing, but to bleed this miserable wretch until he can scarcely moan. So this guy was strung up and tortured. And it sounds like she almost has some sympathy for him. It's like, you guys are a bunch of thieves, but to string up a guy and torture him. But then she sees his face. She says, in the blessed name of Elric and by all the saints of Tarim, you... Says the man is not a Nemedian. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But a Hyrcanian, like Sonja herself. And Sonja knows him and remembers him through bitter flashes of fierce rage. And she's got this guy who is strung up and being tortured. She says, you, nameless one, it's you, the one I cursed every day for 5 long years. So then we get into kind of an origin of Red Sonja. And, it goes through kind of a backstory of her when she was younger. God, this girl's got like the Princess Leia buns, like side buns on her head. So there's all this backstory. There's this guy who's this dashing douchebag. He shows up, and he's drawn in a very specific way, so we can kind of identify this guy, who he is. But he shows up and starts wrecking shit with Sonja's family. The text here says, then she saw the nameless one, the one who had ordered all the carnage, and how he now reacted to it, like he's happy about it. And she screams at him and says, you'll laugh no more, murdering fiend, unless your laughter sounds in the pits of hell. And so this random soldier down here, he comes up and he's like, what is this? A girl trying to lift a sword? I might find it amusing if the sight of a raised sword did not enrage me. So this guy bitch slaps her, just backhands her. It says it was the first time Sonja had been struck by a man, the first time she had felt death so close. So this random soldier starts stomping her to the ground. He's going to kick the hell out of her. But then the douchebag guy that kind of runs these bad guys, he says, hold your blade, fool. Has the sight of blood driven you from all your senses? So he grabs Sonja, very young Sonja, and he says, are you simply blind to a far better sport the wench offers? And she's like, no, please, you can't. The text says he chuckled then, and as his thin lips curled into a sneer. You can kind of see where this is going. So the text says she remembers being slung over his shoulder, being carried, squirming and kicking towards the house. So he picks her up, drags her to the house, and it says she's being forced down onto the bed. And this douchebag guy says, try not to struggle, red hair. You might find yourself enjoying it. But then if you wish to struggle, I'll not object. So you can see where this is going. And I'm like, oh, is this the thing that we're going to do to this character to give her her motivation? There's a picture of her screaming face. She says she remembers the sharp yelps of pain, the panting whimpers, the feeling of helplessness lasting 1,000 eternities, the low, coarse laughter from the men outside. But most of all, she remembers his face, seen through a red haze, twisted, hideous, then the long, tortured sobbing and the feeling of clinging filth when it was over, when his hideous face filled the darkness of her closed eyes. So a lot of overly cutesy, frilly words to kind of show that this horrible thing happened to her. Now, the reality is that, yeah, shit like this happens. And back in old time like this, I mean, it's a horrible thing. And it happens. And so it kind of makes it a valid concept. I mean, it's just the truth of things. But this is also back in 1982. I'm looking at this through the lens of 2026. Would I write a character where one of her, the defining kind of horrific thing that happens to her is this guy takes advantage of her and does what he does, and now she's left this throbbing, that's a terrible word, this crying mess because she just got violated so horrifically? I don't know what the answer is. It's a nuanced-ish conversation. I'm not going to be the one that say, this is dumb, this is a cheap way out, this is teeming with male fantasy. No one's pretending like this is awesome. Does it need to be there? Could you have come up with something else? Yes. Is this a completely valid thing that could happen and has happened, and you remind people of the horror of it and show that it's terrible, so that you kind of help drive it into people's minds that, yeah, this is terrible, we don't ever do this horrible thing? I don't know how to feel. I was just kind of I remember my first thought when I was reading this before I started recording, I'm like, oh, we're doing this to the character. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I know that I don't like it, but that's the point. We're not supposed to like it. Anyway, they take off, they leave, And then it says, of course, because of course these guys are scum, it had been the first crackling sounds of flame which shook Sonja from her sobbing. So they're burning the house down that she was in. And filled with her long moments of panic, and the flames grew and reached inward. There was nothing left for her. No family, no home. It had all been torn away from her, destroyed in blood and flame. The memories become disjointed now, images recalled in stark flashes, dousing herself from the urn she'd filled this morning. So she looks like she's, dousing herself from the urn so she won't burn. She runs out, wrapping herself in a soiled shift and blanket. I don't know what that is. A soiled shift. Anyway, staggering from the inferno, which had once been her home, but now was a place of nightmares. There was nothing but the ground and a murky sea of faces, all hideous but the same. And then she's having some kind of like spiritual moment where it says, could it be a god, Elric, or some other? It must be, for what else could appear so miraculously, shaped of neither man nor woman, yet embracing all the strengths and beauty of both. The vision spoke to Sonja, and she heard soft music and deep thunder. So this great godly creature that is neither man nor woman, but both, comes to her and says, you have your own strength, Sonja. It has dwelled within you, but has now been awakened. If you will have but the will, Sonja, you may use your strength to make the world your home. You may become a wanderer, the equal of any man or woman you meet. But first you must make a vow to me, Sonja. You will never allow yourself to be loved by another man unless he has defeated you in fair battle. Something no man is like to do after this day. So that point, I remember I've read very, very little of Red Sonja, but in fact, probably the first and only thing, maybe the only thing, I don't know. The first thing I've read is years ago. There was a What If comic. What if Wolverine fought Conan the Barbarian? Wolverine got sent through a time portal and ended up back in this era and ran into Red Sonja. He fought her, defeated her, and she was lying there. And in that comic, she says, it is my curse or whatever that I will never love a man unless he has bested me in battle. And you have done it. So she's basically offering up her body to him, to Wolverine. And like, yeah, okay, you've beat me. I guess you can have it, but don't expect me to enjoy it. And Wolverine, he doesn't speak her language. He doesn't know what she's saying, but he could tell what she was getting at. And he's like, yeah, no, no thanks. So he leaves. And she was kind of like confused, maybe slightly insulted. And so she kind of chased him down, and they ended up talking, and they ended up becoming involved in a relationship. And Wolverine ended up staying in the Conan era, living out the rest of his days there with Red Sonja. But that whole, like, you can have me because you beat me, that's the first and only time I've ever known that concept to exist. And here it is written there. So I'm like, how long has that concept been part of her character, her origin? It's another kind of like, now she says, you will never allow yourself to be loved by another man. Now, does loved mean emotional, or are we talking about fucking her? It's kind of a weird, like, another weird kind of concept that for a writer to create, we're not going to let her fuck anybody unless they can beat her in battle, and nobody can beat her in battle, so therefore no one can fuck her. But goddamn is she hot, and everyone wants to fuck her. It's a weird thing that I don't know if it actually works. It's a little weird. But she's like, you bet your heart, you bet your sweet ass, I will promise to do all this shit, and I will not let anybody love me. And so she gets like, kind of like knighted, and then boom, she wakes up, and then there's more scuzzy douchebag bad guys. So Sonja's able to kick the shit out of them, beat their ass, and she's standing on top of a mountain, and she becomes Red Sonja. She becomes an unbeatable badass warrior. And then thus we come to the story where 5 years later, she runs into that guy who assaulted her. It says 5 long years. As the memories fade, Sonja snarls, and so she lifts up his head. Because again, this guy who did this horrible thing to her, he was captured by some other bad guys, and he's been strung up and tortured. And so she says, "Do you hear me, nameless one? I waited 5 years to find you, 5 years to cut your throat. Do you hear?" But then the text says there is no reply. For when Sonja lifts his head, the better to study his face, she sees that he is beyond listening, that the torment he has suffered has left his eyes vacant, his mind destroyed. So it's, to me, it's reading, he's still alive, but he's suffered some of the most horrific shit. That's kind of like there's nothing for her to do anymore anyway. She could just kill him, but it says she steps back, contemplating the worth of vengeance exacted from a man too mad to feel it. The robbers have cheated her, and for a moment, like the delicate girl of 5 years past, she feels the urge to cry, but then she tosses back her scarlet mane, and the glade fills with long and loud laughter. And because darkness is falling and the shadows gather towards that time when dark woods wolves slink forth, she mounts her black steed and never once turns to look upon the man whose name she has never known. A wolf growls in the distance behind her, and Sonja knows she has made the right choice, for the nameless face with shimmers in her mind is no longer hideous, and now, like the swirling memory, a long ago vision begins to fade. So I do kind of appreciate the idea that she was horribly assaulted by this guy. And she's been chasing him, but we find him and he's been tortured horrifically already in the worst possible ways that we don't even get to see. And she's pissed off that she doesn't get to have her vengeance. And you have to find peace with that. That is an interesting idea. That I kind of was like, all right, that kind of works for me. You couldn't wait to find this guy, and you're going to chop his dick off and stuff it up his ass and pull his tongue out through his eyeballs and just any kind of all manner of horrific stuff. But he's already suffered so much, like, you just kind of leave him. And then she's kind of saying, or the text is saying, there are wolves out there. I wonder if that's kind of implying the wolves are going to come along and eat him to death anyway. But she had to let it go. And it sounds like she does. She's like, all right, you know what? He's done. It's over. It's past. No more. So that ending kind of was interesting to me. But there was that one element that I'm like, do we need to have that in this thing? Some photos from the Conan movie. This girl, that scene in the movie, she was like equally like super hot and kind of creepy as hell in that scene. I really liked that scene. That was really interesting. For the longest time when I was younger, I only ever saw the second Conan movie, which was really kind of cheesy. It was fun. It was fine. But it wasn't until years later when I was much older and I finally I need to watch the original Conan one. And by God, was that a much better version. It was like it took the material serious. And I hadn't read anything Conan, but I'd seen a lot of imagery, a lot of art, and it felt like a very serious, brutal sword and sorcery kind of concept. And that first Conan movie with Schwarzenegger, this one, that I'm like, this felt very correct. Now, I'm not an expert on it. I'm not one who can really speak on it, but it felt to me like that's how this concept should have been done. Dig that shot of that girl though. That she was really super creepy. So it's kind of fun to see them throwing in this stuff. I have to imagine people that were reading these Conan magazines were probably very excited for this movie. I think I'd like to imagine. Anyway, there's another backup story, not quite as interesting artistically as the others. Flipping through that real quick. Okay, that one's fine. We'll just blast through another one here real quick. Why not? I got it out. There's a painting by that Chiodo guy. I can't believe he's been drawing and painting and all this stuff that long, if it's the same dude. Another great inside front cover from that same artist with great interesting textures going on. Looks really cool. This is August of 82. Once again, same kind of artist, John Buscema, breakdowns, finishes and tones, Ernie Chan. So again, that same kind of great art from that same team. These gray tones and these are fantastic. Boy, does Buscema draw like perfect horses. Like, good God. Just the cool, and this is even a continuation of the last story, because remember this creature in the cage. Like I said, I didn't read these, but it's a continuation of the story. I might actually need to sit down and read these. But look at all these great shots of the horses charging. Look at the composition of this battle scene. freaking fantastic. All of these shots. Each one of these is like its own kind of like, this could be like hung up and like a museum piece, like an art gallery show. Every one of these, just you could look at this and just marvel at the great art going on. It's incredible. Freaking fantastic. But yeah, this is kind of a repeat of the same concepts that I've talked about, so I'm just kind of blasting through this really quick. Freaking amazing art everywhere. Great finishes, great ink tones. Yep. And then looks like oh shit. Hey, look, Conan gets the girl. Does their Conan ever not get the girl? Picking her up and walking away with her. He's going to go give her the old crumb special. Another story. Now it says art and story by John Buscema. This is him inking himself. And of course it looks good, but I am so enamored with the previous stuff. This looks like kind of classic John Buscema's work because it's inked by him, but I kind of like that other guy's inking and finishes. It's a minor difference, but it's just something about the other stuff that I like a little bit better. Look at this shot. I love these stairs, kind of the uneven nature of these kind of stone walls. It's just these like thick, chunky black and white lines going up to show that the stair is going into the distance. That is really neat. Fantastic stuff. This top shot, that face, that creepy expression on that guy. Holy crap. And then more into the Conan movie. Executive producer. Do we give a fucking shit about the executive producer? Do we give a shit about the associate producer of the Conan movie? I'm sure they're willing to get like anybody who would talk to them. Because why wouldn't you? And then letters, pages, backup story, breakdown John Buscema, finishes and tones with a Danny Bulanati? Probably saying that way wrong. Again, all pretty fantastic stuff. It's all pretty dang good. More great gray tones. But yeah, we're just about done here. And then a couple of pinups from Ernie Chan himself. Like that shot. That's awesome. And that shot of him on that horse. That's awesome. Fantastic. Anyway, so Conan. I got a whole bunch more of these to go through. When my friend Mark Domowitz said he was going to send me a bunch of duplicates. He collects these. He's got a big pile of them. And apparently these ones that he sent me, these are all duplicates. And he sent me a big pile. Like if I were to stack them on my table here, it'd be a thick stack of books. So I got a lot of black and white artwork to go through that's going to be fantastic. I just have to quit forgetting that they exist. So anyway, that's all I got for these. Conan, it's such beautiful work. Fantastic stuff. So that's all I got for this one. So thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.